Ray, an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. It's indeed an honor, and I can speak on behalf of myself and everyone here to hear from one of the gurus in the financial market. Thank you very much. Um, Carrying from your opening address, where you spoke about the tectonic shifts that we're going through in the global economy today, and building on your amazing book that everyone here has today, wanted your views on how do you see this global landscape evolve, and what are the principles that you see governing it?
Oh, thank you. Again, it's such a pleasure, honor to be here. I've been coming to Abu Dhabi for, I think it's 34 years, and it's just amazing to be here, and the relationships are so wonderful. To answer your question, I'm a global macro investor. And one of the things I learned in my something like 50 years of doing this is that sometimes things surprised me because they never happened in my lifetime, but they happened many times in history. And there were three things in particular that came along starting about 4 or 5 years ago, particularly, that never happened in my lifetime, but happened many times before. And they drew my attention to do this research over the last 500 years. And they were the amount of debt and money creation that existed.
Yeah.
The second was the amount of internal conflict, wealth and values gaps that produced populism of both extremes and almost a civil war kind of environment, particularly in the United States, but other countries too. The third, of course, is the great international power conflict. In other words, the changing world order when one great power challenges another great power. And then fourth, from studying history, I saw that even bigger influence was acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics, killed more people than wars,
Yeah.
toppled more governments and orders. And of course, that's a big influence. And then number five was technology. Man learns and invents new technology. And so in seeing these over a period of time, I realized that they're not individually important, they affect each other. So, for example, our economic debt situation affects our political situation, which affects our geopolitical situation. You think of the cost of climate. We talk about climate. Estimated cost for the world is between $5 and $10 trillion a year in a world GDP that's 100 trillion. And of course, technology. Wow. So we, in my opinion, are going to be going through almost a time warp that I think the next 5 to 10 years is going to be radically different as we approach these things together. So almost everything important falls onto one of those categories, and then thinking about how they relate to each other, one can create a somewhat vivid picture of the trends that are emerging.
That's fascinating. Fascinating views indeed. As you're aware, Ray, this second edition of Abu Dhabi Finance Week is built on the theme investing in a transition era, in many ways inspired by your book. Given all the investors and the CXOs we have in the room today, I'm sure me and all of them are very keen to understand how do you thrive in this environment? And if I can put the spotlight especially on this region, how do you thrive in this region given the environment we're in?
First of all, we don't know what the future holds, although we do know that there are problems. We know, for example, there's a certain amount of indebtedness and it's being added to fast,
Yes.
and that there's not enough money in the world, really, for all of the particular expenses and so on. So we know that we are in a turbulent world. When we go back and study history, we know that sometimes there can even be wars. What you know, though, is the basics matter, and those are a few. First, the best places, like the best financially individuals, the best countries, are those that earn more than they spend, and have more assets than liabilities? In other words, do they have a good income statement and a good balance sheet?
As an accountant, I understand that.
Yeah, financially, are they strong?
Yeah.
Are they places in which human capital and people working together work well together to create a civil environment in which there's creativity and productivity happening? When you look around the world, these are very differentiating characteristics. And number three, are you in the middle of what could be a great geopolitical conflict, the wars between those types of countries? If you pick places that are free or richer, lower risks in that regard, I think that's an important distinguishing characteristic. History has shown that when there are great conflicts, those that do better, even in wars, it's not the countries that win the war that does the best. And the countries that lose almost everything, history has shown, it is those that are not in the war, the neutral countries, that can prosper. So all through history, no matter what, these particular places, these opportunity places, are important. I think Abu Dhabi is one of those Renaissance states that is in between the great conflicts and has to manage those things. But it's a place that it's attracting talent and it's creating that vitality, and it's a very civil place and a financially stable place where there's that great human capital as well as financial capital.
Right. Now again, that's very insightful indeed. That's a good segue to the last question that I in fact had for you. So last but certainly not least, you are no stranger to Abu Dhabi. As you yourself said, you've been here over the last 30 years and you've seen the evolving and the transition of Abu Dhabi in so many ways. Given what's happening in the world today, how do you see Abu Dhabi both shape and evolve in this radically changing world order? And any advice would be most welcome.
Well, I think, as I say, I think the basics matter. I think, all parents who have children want education, want equal opportunity, want those basics. And so, as I said before, I think that this is, it's a place and also a more exciting region.
Yeah.
As we're dealing with the other countries, some of the other countries in the region, that energy that's taking place. So I think it's a place that I wish more people who are outside the world got to know it as intimately as I've gotten to know it. And I think that one has to pay attention to that. And there's an expression, Chinese expression, is a smart rabbit has three holes, So I think exposure to Abu Dhabi and I'm not just saying this, I'm beyond any of the creating endorsements for the sake of endorsements or whatever. I have experienced this, and so I believe in these qualities, and I think that Abu Dhabi and the region, I'm very excited about the region. There's an entrepreneurship that's happening, venture capital and entrepreneurship that never existed in the way that it's happening now is very much developing. So I'm excited to invest in the region. I expect others, when they get exposure to it, will also enjoy it and profit from it.
That's wonderful. Dalio, that is incredible. Thank you for being Abu Dhabi's partner through all these years. And thank you for your valuable time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your partnership.